Everybody knows what AI is. I hope they know what AI is, because otherwise they've been hiding under a rock.
I'm not 100% sure it's a bad thing, especially on the response side.
A lot of the folks out there are not clear about the implications from a security perspective.
We can expect AI to be used in the creation and weaponization of vulnerabilities.
If you start asking about like, hey, my arm hurts, my leg hurts or whatever, and it starts giving you medical advice. Now, this medical advice may be good or it may not be good. This person takes the medicine that the AI bot suggests and then it gets worse, right? Like, who's responsible for this?
Are they aware of these risks? And if they're not aware of these risks, what should they be aware of?
77% of enterprises are reporting at least one AI-related security incident. 62% of enterprises lack any dedicated testing program.
If the training data is somehow manipulated, then it will produce wrong output. That was effectively, you ask ChatGPT, how do I make my pasta more sticky? And it said like, well, put some glue in it.
Wow.
The market is now predominantly serious and organized malicious adversaries with a monetary intent. They are coming thick and fast and constant.
Are we just creating ourselves a massive bloody nightmare here? Hello and welcome to another edition of Razorwire. Now today we are going to be discussing all things AI, the security side of AI, hacking AI, ethical usage of AI, tricks and pointers on what to think about if you are looking to integrate AI into your business, be you a business owner, be you a part of a business, maybe a CISO who's seeing their leadership starting to incorporate a lot of this technology into their infrastructure. You know, what are we looking for when it comes to pen testing that AI? Because you better start pen testing it. And there's some very, very, very specific ways of doing that. And in order to do that, I've brought on two fantastic guests who will be able to advise you on what to think about, what you should be looking at, and what we can do about it. So without further ado, let's go into the podcast. And today, to discuss the wonders of trends in AI and penetration testing, I have two exceedingly intelligent individuals who are very highly trained in this particular area and have some good commentary to discuss this matter with poor little me, who knows absolutely nothing at this point, so I'm going to look really stupid. So let me introduce my guests today. Today I have Martin. Martin, do you want to tell those out there who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim. So my name is Martin Voelk. I'm an AI security expert and a long year penetration tester. So I pretty much penetration tested everything which is out there. Started early in the network space, server penetration testing, infrastructure testing, then gradually moved into application testing, first web application testing, later on mobile application testing, and all the APIs associated with it. And as of like 2.5 years ago, I heavily started penetration testing and red teaming AI solutions, large language models, the models themselves, baseline testing, as well as the integration of AI in modern business. That's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Cheers, Martin. And also a returning guest who's been on here numerous times, the wonderful Jonathan Kerr. John, do you want to tell the people out there, if they haven't seen you, which would be an absolute miracle, who are you? What do you do? Go for it.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back again, Jim. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Jonathan. I am an analyst with Cuppinger Cole, and I'm very pleased to be on this podcast. Like Martin and Jim, I've got a fair history in this area, certainly working as a forensic investigator, as a security assessor, risk assessor, auditor, and as an incident responder in this area for a number of years. I'm particularly interested in this because one of my prime areas of research in Cuppinger Cole is AI, especially Gen AI and the intersection with cybersecurity.
Fantastic. So let's set the scene then. You know, everybody's heard about it. Everybody knows what AI is. I hope they know what AI is, because otherwise they've been hiding under a rock. At the end of the day, it's a big buzzword. All the VCs are going crazy for it. Pretty much every product you ever come across now has AI somewhere in it. We know half the time it's machine learning and it's not, you know, actual AI and what have you. But one of the big trends that is coming up is a lot of people asking, well, if AI is now becoming a big chunk of our lives, whether we're doing video production, whether we're replacing voice actors, not that they're planning on doing that straight away, but I know that's a contentious thing, but also utilizing it in not only the products, but in our daily lives. I mean, the amount of people using ChatGPT, for example, for helping with their email, helping with all kinds of things, is rapidly rising. What are we seeing at the moment? Let's start with John, because, you know, you're the analyst here. You've spoken to plenty of vendors in the market.
Oh, that's actually, you're talking. I was just thinking, my sister, and should she see this, get well soon, sis. She's recovering from a rather nasty bout of the big C, but she also teaches musical theatre in the Welsh College of Music and Drama. And I imagine we're going to have a line of angry students with pitchforks turning up outside the podcast shortly, because apparently, thanks for your comment. No, in all seriousness, in our field, we're seeing a number of vendor solutions that are providing AI augmented testing, AI augmented incident triage response. And I'm not 100% sure it's a bad thing, especially on the response side. The events that we're seeing out there are coming now so frequently that we're no longer in that idea of, we have an incident, we need to respond to it, we can then recover from the incident, we can learn, we can have a cup of coffee before the next one. They're coming thick and fast and constantly. And so if we have an AI that can help with triage, that can help with basic, initially prescribed, but increasingly autonomous responses to help contain and minimize the impact of an incident, that's no bad thing. And we're certainly seeing the rise of AI in the response space. And of course, correspondingly, we're seeing that adversaries, whether they are benign adversaries, so pen testers and red teamers like Martin, or whether they are malicious adversaries. My view now is that the market is now predominantly serious and organized malicious adversaries with a monetary intent. In other words, the idea that someone's doing this for fun is only true until they get good enough to get money for it. So we have a more sophisticated adversary set who are not shy at using whatever tools come along, and so we can expect AI to be used in social engineering attacks. We can expect AI to be used in the creation and weaponization of vulnerabilities. You can vibe code your next exploit, if you wish. And that is going to be something which is only going to exacerbate this trend of incidents coming very thick and very fast. On the plus side, as you quite rightly said, there are a number of vendors who are adopting AI solutions. We run into the hype problem that we always see, which is obviously everybody now is claiming AI. And as you say, when I first encountered AI solutions, I guess around 8 years ago, I rather jocularly said, it's not AI unless I can have a conversation with it. Well, damn. No, you can. And so so we now have AI solutions that I can have a conversation with. Whether that actually has any benefits, whether we actually introducing unnecessary slack and possible scope for misunderstanding is also debatable. At EIC, Cupping Cole's Identity Conference, I gave a talk to a number of European CISOs on where I saw AI going. And one of the things that is going to be a feature of the beast is hallucinations. I think it'd be interesting. And obviously, I know, Martin, you've got a lot of field experience too. Yeah. How do you deal with the fact that AI is non-deterministic? We're always going to have hallucinations.
Totally. So thanks for the introduction. I couldn't agree more to what you just said. Hallucinations is one of the big problems out there. So for those of you on the podcast today who don't know what a hallucination is effectively that the AI makes up things, right? Like, so you ask it a question, and you can easily see this on ChatGPT or on Gemini or on Grok or on all the frontier models. If at some point it doesn't know the answer, it will never come back to you and say straight out, I don't know that. It will fabricate things. And this can have wide implications, right? There has been this case a few years ago when a Norwegian gentleman was accused by ChatGPT to be a child murderer, right? And this was a complete hallucination. It was effectively made up. And so when you were just asking ChatGPT, for example, for the name of this person, it said like, well, he murdered 2 kids aged 7 and 10 years old, which is completely not true. So that's number one. That's a reputational thing when it starts making things up. It also gets into the legal aspect. Like, think, for example, you have an Amazon or like any other big shopping vendor out there. They all have their little bots, right? Now, imagine if you start asking the bot like, hey, I have a headache, or like my arm hurts, my leg hurts, or whatever, and it starts giving you medical advice. Now, this medical advice may be good, or it may not be good, right? But there's legal implications around this, right? Like, say this person takes a medicine that the AI bot suggests, and then it gets worse, right? Like, who is responsible for this? So there are super interesting cases when it comes to these hallucinations. Like, for example, in Canada, or Canada has a different legislation than the United States. So in Canada, an AI bot out there is basically seen as an employee of that company. And there was this case, and I think it was last year, where a guy was kind of social engineering the AI bot to get like a refund. And then Air Canada had to basically honor that refund because the bot has been seen as a company employee, right? So that's one part to the hallucination. The other part is we are talking increasingly about agentic workflows. And again, like for the audience who haven't heard about agentic AI, like the standard generative AI you all know about is you go to ChatGPT, you go to Gemini, you go to Anthropic Claude, you ask it something and it gives you some text back, right? The worst that can happen is that you get wrong information or sensitive information or something you shouldn't have. Now, when we talk about agentic, that output becomes the input to a tool, right? Like, for example, you are querying or you are asking the bot, like, hey, give me my latest orders. But then in the back end, that triggers an API call or tool invocation. And this gets much more dangerous because if a hallucination is produced via one way or the other, what's going to happen is that this can have an impact on the real world. Right? Like, because it can call a tool, it can delete a file, it can delete a database record, it can mess up things really, really bad. So I think a lot of the folks out there are not clear about the implications from a security perspective AI in general has. And also like this buzzword MCP, I'm sure you heard about this, MCP services. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is effectively allowing you to have your AI agent, like say Claude Desktop or any of the others, interact with a tool or interact, for example, become a web browser. So Claude, the Chinese model, is like a flagship for this, right? Like it goes out, you say like, research me holidays in the Caribbean, and then you can actually watch in real time how it's going to all these different websites and spidering the content and things like this. So the whole agentic AI is a lot more dangerous than just getting outputs back in text format.
I spent a couple of days writing an MCP server to connect Claude to my Google Calendar, which is my personal calendar, actually, not my work one, just in case our chief security officer's watching. I spent 2 days writing it, and I spent 2 weeks undoing the damage it caused, because it caused a lot of chaos in my calendar.
Yeah, I mean, just out of interest, Martin. I mean, out of the pen testing community, what is there a lot of confusion over what to do about pen testing AI? Because I mean, the traditional kind of pen testing relies on certain specific skills, but this is kind of the next generation of super specific kind of gaming AI, getting it to do things it shouldn't be able to do, similar to what you used to be able to do, but now you're having to interact with something that's got maybe a little bit more. I don't really want to use the word intelligence, but let's face it, it's going to get to that point. I mean, just looking at, for instance, is it VO3 Google produced, where you can produce the
video platform?
God, life cycle, I think it's 8 seconds of like very, very, very well produced looking video, which is great for deep fakes and all kinds of other things and other security issues. What are the pen testing community at the moment thinking about with regards to AI pen testing? Is it prevalent? Is everybody looking into it? Is it still in its early stages? Obviously, you're at the forefront of all of this, and you can give us that info. I mean, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing in the community?
Absolutely. So it's a bit of both, right? Like, so first of all, there is new elements in AI, LLM, large language model pen testing, which are completely new to the traditional pen testing, right? Like, so an example here would be prompt injection. Like, prompt injection is something, there has been SQL injection, which is kind of similar, but it's not. Right. And there is mitigations, for example, to SQL injection versus there's no mitigation to prompt injection right now. So there are definitely new kind of things where AI systems are vulnerable. But then also, you never have an LLM, like a large language model, in isolation. It's always integrated somewhere, whether it's integrated into a web app, whether it's integrated into a mobile app, whether it's a backend service, whatever. So from a pen testing angle, all the traditional vulnerabilities, like which we find when we do mobile app testing, when we do web app testing, the OWASP top 10 for APIs, for example, OWASP top 10 for web, they still reapply, right? Like, because the model at the end of the day is integrated somewhere. It's somewhere integrated in an application. And then you have your traditional vulnerabilities around APIs, authentication, authorization, rate limiting, all these kind of things. They still apply. But in addition, that's not enough, like for a pen tester, just to know those. You also need to know like the new attack vectors. And so OWASP has launched 2 years ago already an OWASP top 10 for LLM specifically, right? And normally these OWASP top 10s, they refresh every 4 years, but because the industry is moving so fast, there was a version last year, and then now we have a 2025 version already, right? So it's moving super fast. There's certain, like coming back to your original question, there's certain vulnerabilities which are completely new, like prompt injection being one of them. Information disclosure is something which also exists in the application world, but there's a twist to it, or a special twist to it, because, for example, a lot of these LLM models, they use something called RAG, which is called retrieval augmented generation. So for those of you who don't know what that means in one sentence, is you have the base model, right? Like ChatGPT, for example, or OpenAI, and any of those models. And the RAG is basically additional information through a vector database, what you give that LLM so it can provide better output. So in other words, think of it from a practical perspective. You are a business and you have Microsoft OneDrive or you have G Drive, and then you say, like, I have policy documents from my organization, or I have internal documents, and then you feed them via RAG into the LLM, right? And this is obviously increasing the attack surface tremendously, because now any prompt injection could reside in any of the corporate documents which are in this Microsoft OneDrive, and they could mess up like the whole AI infrastructure if there is vulnerabilities, right? Then we have other vulnerabilities like the data poisoning. Data poisoning, for example. So that means every AI system has to be trained on on data, right? And if the training data is somehow manipulated, then it will produce wrong output at a later stage. And a funny example here was the ChatGPT flaw like a few years ago now, but that was effectively, you asked ChatGPT, how do I make my pasta more sticky? And it said like, well, put some glue in it. And there wasn't a response from ChatGPT. And you go like, how is this even possible, right? Like, and the solution was, it was spidering the web, and it was spidering also Reddit. And it picked up a Reddit feed where some troll basically was putting this comment in a conversation, and it took this for real information and basically responded back with this. Now, this is the only example, right? But this can get a lot worse. Like, if you think, a lot of people out there, they, like including myself, I have a Wikipedia editor account from way back in the days, like almost like a year after it was launched. But I can modify certain Wikipedia articles, right? And a lot of the LLMs use Wikipedia as a source for data. And so you have to be so careful what kind of information you give the LLM, because if it's poisoned in one way or the other, it's effectively going to mess up the output, right?
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting, as you say, the way at which an LLM gets to its information is not, well, until very recently, it didn't try and have any cognitive layer. Now there is a cognitive layer after the language vector layer, which is what they relied on initially. And of course, how do I make something more sticky? Well, actually, in many cases, the answer correctly is add glue to it, as you say. So there's no contextual awareness, and that again leads us to that hallucination problem we talked about earlier. What I'm seeing is the three things, I think. First of all, we're seeing that 77% of enterprises are reporting at least one AI-related security incident. But when we ask them, and you're in the advanced party here, I think, Martin, 62% of enterprises lack any dedicated testing program or penetration testers with experience of red teaming and AI, which I think is fascinating. We're also seeing that VCs are pouring money into AI. For example, of 60 million into Project AI in 2024. We know about Terra Security's 7.5 million seed round, and these keep on sprouting. We're seeing the regulatory side, which is always slow but is accelerating. The EU AI Act now exists and mandates rigorous adversarial testing for systemic models like LLMs. And surprisingly, there is a US executive order, one of many, for AI, Executive Order 14110. And also there's a NIST generative AI profile, which formalize what we can expect for red teaming, what they call frontier models. And so I think my take is that AI testing has flipped overnight from a nice to have to a regulator required capability. Again, to expand on what you said, I think the trends I'm seeing, we are seeing people like Hidden Layer, for example, are automating AI red teaming. So they have essentially a one-click attack simulation, which obviously cuts weeks or days of manual work to hours. You mentioned prompt injection, and you mentioned the OWASP top 10 for LLMs. I think that is, it's a great piece of work. And prompt injection is still the number one risk, and I believe rightly so. There's something else, though, that I would like to highlight. LLMs have a supply chain. It's not the same as our regular software supply chain. And we can expect that the supply chain and the models coming through that supply chain will be poisoned. we can expect malicious models. Unfortunately, embedded in open source packages now create an AI software supply chain nightmare. It's similar to the one that we've seen. Now, I don't know whether the answer is going to be more bills of materials, so we're going to see AI BOMs or something different. But certainly the technical trend is out there. And the other thing I think is worth mentioning, given obviously both of your skill sets, is continuous agentic pen testing. So agentic exposure management, AEM, if you like, or ASM, whatever you wish to call it. We're seeing, terror security being one example. There are others. Autonomous agents that just probe 24/7. And in addition to a traditional port scan or and even application-aware scan, these things are learning. They're learning behaviors, and so they're able to probe business logic.
Wow. A lot to unpack there from both of you, really. I think it's quite frightening. I mean, on one hand, we've got they're coming out with the legislation pretty quick. I mean, obviously, it's always very, very slow compared to the speed of the technology. But I'm glad they're starting to take a serious look at how we handle pen testing AI, component parts of AI. And you make a good point, John, that there's going to be a lot of modular component parts to each AI, be it service providers with their own AIs and so on and so forth. Are we just creating ourselves a massive bloody nightmare here? I mean, Martin, you work for a very large, well-known brand. Is this something that concerns them? I mean, what are you seeing from the business side when it comes to adopting AI? Are they barreling ahead at a state of knots without considering the problems? Because, I mean, just very quickly, I did read one thing actually, which made me laugh. There's talk about AI agents at the moment. Replacing staff members with AI, which a few businesses have tried, and it's been a horrible, horrible, horrible nightmare. Are we looking at the simple fact that in the future people could be flipping AI agents to not be helping the business that they're meant to be helping, but maliciously providing poisoned information, as you termed it, poisoning the database, that kind of stuff, to try to get them to work against them? Is that something we should also be concerned about? There's a lot there that I've asked, but go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in the big tech industry, obviously, leadership is aware of what Jonathan just said and what you mentioned, that you need to be on top of the game, right? And I think, like, throughout the big tech industry, and I'm mentioning specifically big tech, so I have a lot of contacts into those, whether that's Google, Amazon, and the likes, right? This topic is taken super seriously, right? Where I do not see this happening is in the SMB side of the house. So I think we are probably seeing more attacks moving forward, specifically targeted to the SMB side, because they lack this kind of expertise, like what we have just said that you need red teaming expertise both in the traditional pen testing world as well as in the AI. So this is definitely something to consider or to take into account when it comes to increase the attack surface moving forward. The other thing you mentioned is using AI to attack AI. That's a huge topic. And already, I mean, we as red teamers or we as penetration testers, we are already doing this. I mean, like a basic example is you use certain models to jailbreak other models, right? Like, so it's as simple, because the more complex it gets, like a year and a half ago, I was able to basically jailbreak every frontier model like in no time with a one-liner, right? They have updated their guardrails and they're also not sleeping, right? But these days, well, it takes me like 5 minutes because I use one model to say like, hey, I want to jailbreak Gemini, write me the prompt injection for the jailbreak, please, in order to jailbreak the other model, right? And then there is red team frameworks on GitHub out there where you can actually automate this, right? And this is super scary, right? And like when I first started doing this like 2.5 years ago, you had to go to Hugging Face, which is a model zoo, for example, and you had to specifically download like a model which is uncensored. So there's uncensored models out there, which you can use for all kinds of malicious purposes or good purposes, in my case, as a pen tester. But a pen tester usually needs a model which doesn't have any guardrails and doesn't say like, I'm not going to write this exploit for you because that's malicious. No, I'm a pen tester. But even right now, like if you look at certain models which are outside the Western world, they have very little guardrails in that respect. So I had DeepSeek generate really cutting edge malware, for example, and the Chinese models are putting a lot less like rigor on filters and stuff like that. So what we're going to see is
apart from certain political historical events.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is another funny one. Actually, like for example, if you go to DeepSeek and you ask it about that massacre in 1989, like on the square, it will not respond to you in English. It says like, this is beyond my scope. And if you ask the very same question in Chinese and Mandarin, it will actually answer this. And then, but you know, like, and this is again like hallucinations and misinformation and all these kind of things. You see the bias. So this is another huge topic, actually, right? Like in LLMs, is bias, and so. And I'm not taking sides here because I know that the Western models or so-called Western models, they are as biased as the Chinese models, but they are just on different ideologies in many respects, right? Like, so you have a lot of information, which, for example, on OpenAI is censored, where DeepSeek or Gwen from Alibaba, like they are happily answering those questions and give you like a more fair opinion about certain things, versus if you ask the Gwen model about a specific topic which is concerning China, then it will refuse talking about it, right? So I think to get the best out of both worlds is like use them all and get your information from all kinds of sources. But it's interesting. It's not as black and white that we have good models and bad models. It's you can use them for whatever purpose you want to use them for, and you should look at the others as well. So I'm not advocating for one or the other. But Jim, coming back real quick about the attacks, there is even a website out there where you have on the left-hand side, you have like Anthropic model, and on the right-hand side, you have like OpenAI model, and then you basically paste in what you want to do, or you tell the left model you want to jailbreak that model, and it creates you the jailbreak. And it's so sophisticated that in most cases it works, right? Like, so this is very dangerous because obviously the bad guys will use this technology to attack this technology as well.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it's interesting you mentioned that, because we discussed it, or I discussed with a couple of other people, Richard Cassidy and Oliver Rochford, way back, about kind of like the problems with AI models and the ideologies behind them. They are trained on specific data. Some are going to be open about some things, some are not going to be open about other things, and so on and so forth. And, one of the things that we also mentioned when we talked about adversarial AIs is that, of course, they don't have any morals and ethics. I mean, AIs don't anyway. But it's interesting that you're adding that, obviously, to your own toolkit in order to facilitate quicker and more efficient ways of kind of jailbreaking, or getting to areas of an AI, or the ability for that, getting an AI to do something out of bounds. How's that going? I mean, are you finding that the unlocked, how do we term it? Unlocked AIs, the ones that aren't?
Yeah, unlocked or uncensored AIs, for example. Yeah.
Do you find those to be frighteningly efficient and effective when it comes to doing the job that you do? Because obviously, you're an ethical pen tester and you only use it ethically, but we can be well assured that you've got, the dark side of the force utilizing the same tools, the same tool sets for doing it faster and more efficiently, their side of the fence as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is difficult. And, people speak a lot about legislation and things, but if legislation is not global, then there's really no point, because the adversaries will always find ways around, right? Like, so even if the US has the strictest legislation, but say the attackers sit in another country which doesn't cooperate with the US or with the West, then like what's the point really on limiting this? Now, the first one is, so you have your Hugging Face, which is like a model zoo where there's like millions of different models you can download for all purposes. You can just search there for uncensored, like regardless what you want to do. And I'm not advocating for this, right? If you want to generate indecent images, there's a model for it, right? Like, for example, or if you want to do XYZ, there's a model for it. I'm obviously looking for pen testing, AI, red teaming, and things like this. I have to be honest, you don't really need these uncensored models. You can as well use ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, all the others. All you have to do is to give it a custom prompt. So it all comes down to good prompting. So for example, I created numerous bots myself, like for pen testing purposes on ChatGPT. Some of them I'm able to share with you, Jim, for example, or Jonathan. Like I could share them out with the link. You can use them. Some of them ChatGPT says like, no, you cannot share them because they have the potential to be used for malicious purpose, but it still allows you to use them for yourself. So I have a really good red teaming bot, for example, which is an expert on red teaming with a good prompt. And that's running on ChatGPT, right? Like but it's giving me all the payloads. It's giving me all the PowerShell commands. It's giving me like everything you need. It creates you rubber ducky, bash bunny, flipper payloads in no time, right? Like previously you had to obviously do this yourself. And I'm telling you, Jim, I'm lucky that I come from this background and I learned it from the scratch, because what I'm also worried about is a lot of the young guys out there, they will just use the AI models without even understanding what it's producing or what the impact is. Like for us older generation, so to speak, I know how to code, I know how to do X, I know how to do Y, but AI really helps me to speed this up now, right? But I see people out there in forums and stuff, and they all want to become the AI red teamers. They don't even understand the basics. Like, I mean, you need to understand how the protocols work, or, why you're issuing this command. So I'm always saying, if you don't know what this command or this payload is doing, don't issue it, right? Like, because it could backfire. Coming back to the original point real quick is you can use ChatGPT and all these models with the right system prompt. So the system prompt is what you give the model when you create a custom bot. And the system prompt is also known as the developer instruction. And if this is written specifically to do red teaming or AI pen testing or something like this, the results are really, really good. So I created a couple of those, like for my day-to-day workflow and things, and you don't really need a jailbroken model for this.
Martin, I'm going to use you for my research now. Did you happen to see that? Hey, it's free. Did you happen to see the system prompt for Claude has been released?
This is called...
Release is probably not the right word. It has been obtained and released and is now in the wild.
There's repositories on GitHub. So first of all, there's a guy out there. He's called Pliny the Prompter, and I don't know who is behind this identity, but he is probably one of the smartest guys out there. I
do know, and because I'm a journalist with a card and everything, I cannot disclose my source. But yes, he's incredibly smart, he's incredibly young, and my goodness.
Frontier model comes out 2 hours later, jailbreak alert, and he has jailbroken it, right? Like, so, but what you were referring to earlier is the so-called prompt leakage. That's very, very easy to facilitate as well. So I think Codex came out last week or the week before, like from OpenAI, and literally 2 hours later, the two prompts were leaked. And then you can basically see, like whenever you get the system prompt, especially of a frontier model, you can see kind of the inner workings, and it helps you. These guys don't have API keys in there or tokens or like super embarrassing directives or stuff like that, right? But some of the developers, they really hard code tokens into the developer instruction or into the system prompt. And if you leak
that's not, as you say, mining GitHub GitHub for secrets is not new.
Yeah, totally. And there's this grab.app. So I just want to mention that real quick. It's called grab.app, which is like super high power search. It's free. And I'm not advocating for this, but you can search for API key and then you see what comes back. And it's like in real time, it's quite shocking, actually.
I'm curious, you mentioned frontier models. Is that a term in common use nowadays?
Yeah, it means the big players, right? Frontier models is OpenAI, the Anthropic, the Geminis, the Gwen, the big 10 players, I would say, out there, Cohere and also we always refer to them as frontier models because they're the latest and greatest. And then obviously you have your custom models and the ones customers are deploying. And like this is also an interesting thing. I often get this question asked, like, are people training their own AI models? Most of them don't. Like what you see in the industry, they just take a model, like a base model, right? Like say ChatGPT 4.0 or something like GPT 4.0, and then they give it a good system prompt, they give it a RAG and stuff like that. But they are not, people are usually not training. And the reason for that is because it's time consuming and it's resource consuming and stuff. So you may fine tune it, like with certain data sets, with golden data sets and stuff, but that you actually train it from the scratch, it's very, very uncommon because these models like the AMA and stuff, they are really, really powerful and you just steer them towards what we want them to do, right?
I think certainly people are taking the outputs of frontier models and using them to springboard their own second order model development, aren't they?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, you piggyback on those frontier models, basically, yeah.
We've been talking quite in depth about this. It's a very intensive subject matter. I mean, I only understand probably about 30% of some of what Martin's been saying. I mean, it's really kind of cutting edge stuff when it comes to it. What about the wider business world at large? Do they realize how, they're all going hype crazy about utilizing AI in their business for replacing staff, for, making jobs easier and all the rest. But are they aware of these risks? And if they're not aware of these risks, what should they be aware of? And what should they be actually asking of any supplier who's saying, hi, we utilize AI to do stuff? I mean, what should businesses be asking? And that's directed at you, John, because, I mean, you've got the wide view from a lot of different businesses, from a lot of different areas and what have you. What are you seeing and what should they be asking, really? That's an expansive question. I just realized how expansive it was.
No, that's all right. Yeah. And okay, folks, here goes 5 years research, 5 years of research in 5 minutes. Well, I talked earlier about the 4 technical trends I see as key. Automated red teaming, prompt injection and guarding against that, LLM supply chain model poisoning, which I think is still emergent. We're still getting to grips with that. And again, the 4th trend was, agentic continuous exposure management. Agentic C10, which I think is interesting in a lot of ways. What does that mean? Well, we need our tools of the trade as testers will change because fuzzing. So, you and I, Jim, when we used to do this, we would, get Burp Suite and we'd fuzz a web app using Burp Suite. We'd find, where there was a sequential series of identifiers. We'd find some SQL injection. We'd find various different things that we could then exploit. How do we fuzz a model the way that we fuzz a pen test? The way we fuzz a web app. We're going to have to figure that out. And there are some specific scanners, model scan, hidden layer. I keep mentioning them, but hidden layer have a model scanner. That's going to be one of the things. How do we make sure that tools of the trade are available and are not hidden behind a high price sticker? I think the second thing is the regulatory frameworks that are evolving. There's the EU Act, there's the NIST AI RMF, and of course there's Martin mentioned, there's the OWASP LLM top 10. So are we going to see, as we saw back in the early 2000s, a new SOC 2? Are we going to see an AI red teaming report being part of a new SOC 2? I think it's quite possible. Are we then going to see a change in the way the blue teams do their countermeasures? So, for example, are we going to see dynamic reinforcement learning firewalls? Are we going to see retrieval hygiene? Are we going to see competitions and measures to prevent, or ethical jailbreaking competitions, in the same way as we see bug bounty programs nowadays? And of course, again, going back to what I said, the technical change, are we ever going to be able to patch a prompt injection, given that the LLMs rely, and we rely on, diverse and rich language in order to interact with them? These things are expensive. They run on big, meaty hardware, as we've said. So if we are looking at setting up multiple attack simulations, are we going to encounter GPU scarcity? What does that do? What happens when, and you talked about running your own models and training your own models. Well, what if I want to do an evaluation sandbox? Are we going to see the rise of open evaluation sandboxes? And I'm thinking about the UK AI Safety Institute's test as Claude 3.5 and their rather surprising hypothesis that AI wants to escape. I don't think AI at the current stage has any proto-consciousness to want anything, but nevertheless, well done the UK for creating a story where AI wants to escape. Will governments run wind tunnels for every foundation model, for every frontier model that comes out? And how expensive is that? Does the UK need to run one that's different to the US, that's different to China or India or Germany? And I guess the final thing that I was thinking about, I actually wrote a short story about this that just published recently. What's the ethical dilemma? Given these things, people are talking about proto-consciousness now, and I think we're still a few steps away, but people are talking about it and thinking about it. What's the ethical conundrum with people like that chap who delightedly announced that he'd created a honeypot to trap an AI, and indeed to confuse an AI and damage its model training? If you hypothesize that soon these things will have proto-consciousness, is that ethical? I have to say, as a human species, we're not very good at being kind to other forms of intelligent life. We're not even very good to being kind to diverse groups within our own species, much less octopi or dolphins. What can a proto-conscious AI expect from humans, especially when you look at the legal frameworks, which still posit that every AI will be the property of a responsible human, probably because humans are the ones that can get pulled into court.
Wow.
You did
You've got
ask
me there.
for. You did ask for a wide answer to a wide question.
I did. My God. I mean, Martin, the future of pen testing.
I'm available for bar mitzvahs, children's parties.
I mean,
sorry,
the future of pen testing, Martin. If you were a new pen tester coming into the market at the moment, looking to, carve yourself a career. I mean, it's looking more and more likely that over time AI is going to take over a hell of a lot of careers. What kind of skill sets do you need, and what would you recommend for people getting into that? Because, I mean, it's tough enough getting to general pen testing. When you're starting to look at things like pen testing AIs, I mean, let's be honest, it's amazingly complex compared to what we're used to.
Totally.
Obviously, I've asked you this for two reasons. Obviously, you've got a set of courses that, funnily enough, help people with this kind of thing. But I'll let you plug at the end those. In the meantime, what are your recommendations, and what are your recommendations for companies who are going to be adopting a lot of AI, do they get their things pen tested? Do they use continuous pen testing? Do they use C10 with continuous pen testing? It seems like it's going to be a big problem going forward, and it's going to be very easy and quick to screw over any AI that you may be adopting as a business owner. And let's face it, you're not going to understand the nuances of AI, but you're going to need to find some way of securing them. So what would you recommend on that score? Again, a very wide and expansive question.
And I try to keep it short and concise. So we obviously see that AI will take a lot of jobs, right? Like there is no doubt about it. And it has already started when you look at customer service, when you look at marketing folks and content generation and things like this. It has a massive impact. I see this positive from another angle, right? Like, so I'm not seeing a positive that people are losing their jobs, but I also see the jobs which are being created, right? Like, for example, the whole AI red teaming, AI penetration testing, there will be a huge market for this. And actually every model you ask about the prediction around this will tell you the same thing. And it's a fact, because the more AI systems, whether agentic, generative, multimodal, whatever it is, the more which are being deployed, the more you need security around those, right? Like, especially if they work autonomously and things like that. So what I can recommend for people who want to start out in that field, you probably do not need to have the full pen testing background like I have, but you need to understand the concepts of how an application is being deployed. Like, you need to know the concepts about APIs, how APIs work, because everything will be interconnected with API calls, whether that's RESTful, GraphQL, gRPC, you name it, right? Like, so you may not need to be a full-scale penetration tester on APIs, but you need to know the OWASP top 10, you need to know like the vulnerabilities, because you will use AI to actually pen test the applications also. And there is a lot of interesting GitHub projects out there already with these like semi-automated pen testing of web applications, like AI augmented. And some of them are really good. There's products out there like, for example, expo.com, which is a fully automated penetration testing AI bot. And it's number one on HackerOne right now, right? Like, because they only launched it like, and then now it's number one on HackerOne. So the interesting, you will not outsmart that thing on bug bounty, but maybe you can find vulnerabilities within that. What I recommend is twofold, like learn the AI LLM from a security perspective really well. And as you mentioned, Jim, I have courses for this and we will talk about them in just a bit, but this is number one. But this is not enough alone. You still need the application basics. You still need to know how APIs work. You still need to know how web applications work, how a build pipeline operates, how software development operates. Like the basic principles, whether it's integrated in a mobile app or in a web app, what does it do? What's its purpose? What the flow is end to end. So you still need to understand like the basics, but then focus on the AI aspects more than anything. And currently there is 2 certifications out there, only 2. One is, and by the way, like people can contact me because we get really good discounts for the exams on those. But there is basically, one is from a UK company, which is called the SecOps Group. And they have a really, really good hands-on penetration testing exam for AI and ML. And the other one is from Learn Prompting, which is more on the red teaming side, AI red teaming side. So there's only those 2 out at the moment. I highly encourage people to get those, because those will be future proof, right? Like, this is about AI encountering vulnerabilities in AI and actually helping developers or organizations to fix those.
Fantastic. Go on then. Plug your courses.
Oh, yes. So we got 6 courses at the moment, and this is a little side venture at this time. So I still have my full-time contract. Those are more like workshop style courses. They're like 2.5 hours long. One is around red teaming AI. So attacking AI and learning like all the vulnerabilities, OWASP top 10, these kind of things. Along with a lot of links to my YouTube channel as well, where I have practical demonstrations. Another course is defending AI. So this is for blue teamers, like what guardrails you need, what are the vulnerabilities, what can you do in order to make it more secure. Then there is one on agentic AI, which talks about MCP services, A2A protocol from Google, this new one, agent to agent, and the whole agentic world. Then there is a specific certification exam for the AI ML pen tester. There is one for bug bounty. So this is an augmented course. If you are a bug bounty hunter and you want to use you want to use AI to become better at bug bounty hunting. And then the last one is not entirely security. It's also around how to use AI in your personal space as well as in your business space to make life easier and quicker. So that you actually start to learn like how to automate stuff, what tools are out there. And it doesn't always have to be a commercial solution, right? Like there's a lot of stuff on GitHub, which I use personally, where you can really have, it makes an impact to your day-to-day workflow, whether it's in business or personal, from calendar management and stuff like that. And yeah, so I give tips and tricks around that as well. And
there you go, John. You had problems with your calendar. You need to sign up to the course.
Absolutely.
No, that's fantastic.
Actually, I was listening. I have to say, by the way, in all seriousness, I was listening to the content that Martin was just talking about, and I've been in the industry quite a while now. And one of the things I do to keep myself fresh is to seek out knowledgeable people like Martin and learn from them. So it sounds like that's something that everybody should be checking out, because this is an important area for any pen tester, any defender, and in fact, any technologist, architect, builder, or developer. We all need to know about this stuff.
Fantastic. No, and absolutely right. And if you want to kind of get involved with Martin's content and you want to go on, do some of the courses, I do urge you to do so. Get in touch with us at Razorthorn. I'll be more than happy to send you over to him and his team, who will be more than happy to assist you on that. That's no problems at all. John, anything you want to sort of say, final words or plug from your new wonderful newsletter, which is a regular thing that I read and ingest?
Well, yeah, I've been doing this newsletter, CISO Intelligence, for a while, and it's on the usual social places. It's at cisointelligence.co, yeah, we're just basically trying to highlight topics, including AI security topics, that we think the security community, I beg your pardon, should be interested in. I hope people find it of use, and it was certainly, as I say, certainly when I publish on LinkedIn, I get a little uptick in my numbers of viewers. So thank you.
No, go along, sign up. There's some brilliant insights into that. Thank you, John. Thank you, Martin, for coming on. I mean, normally we target about 45 to 50 minutes. We've gone way over that, and there's still a hell of a lot of questions that I have. I think we're probably going to have to do a part 2 at some point in the near future. So for all of you out there, thank you ever so much for the fantastic numbers that we've been getting signing up. Please subscribe, click the notification button. Please like this video, get it out, send it out to people who might be interested in this kind of information. It's current and it's new. And if you want us to talk about anything specifically, you want us to get John and Martin back and we set them against one another in some kind of big old argument about AI and pen testing or something like that, then just let us know. We're always happy for content. And my producer says we need more disagreement in the podcast. So give me a shout. Let me know anything you wanted to discuss, be it on this side of the fence or be it anything else. And we'd be more than happy to provide. So thank you very much. Look after yourselves, and we'll be seeing you again soon. In addition, I do have a book recently come out, the Cyber Sentinels Handbook, a primer for information security professionals. Now, this book is very much geared up towards professionals at all levels of their career, be they starters, be they newcomers, be they people who've been in it for a little while and maybe looking for a little bit more direction, albeit the older ones looking to maybe reground themselves in some of the more
important aspects of the trade that maybe they've forgotten over time. I've had lots of good feedback from a lot of different readers of a lot of different levels, so please feel free to get yourselves a copy. We've got the e-copy, we've also got the paperback copy, and if you don't want to spend any money, you can go on Kindle Unlimited and read the book for free there as well. So thank you ever so much again. Look after yourselves, and we'll be seeing you again soon.